No one is perfect, and that's exactly why a few mistakes happen now and then. However, you might think that the big construction megaprojects are very carefully thought out. However, that's not always the case. In this video, we take a look at how billion-dollar mistakes were made. A skyscraper in New York nearly collapsed and caused a disaster, and construction sites were delayed for decades. But what isn't delayed for decades is the fact that you have the chance to win a $1,000 if you're a subscriber of the channel. Write in the comments what you think about these mistakes. Number 1. Stuttgart 21. Now we are talking about a huge railroad project in Germany. This project is one of the most exciting construction sites in the country. The whole station has to be turned 90 degrees. The station used to be a terminus, which meant trains had to leave the station backwards. This costs valuable time, which is why the government decided to turn the station into a through station through 1,500 kilometers of high-speed rail linking Stuttgart, Paris, Munich, Vienna, and Bratislava. When construction began in 2010, the plan was for Stuttgart 21 to cost no more than $5.4 billion with a completion date in 2019. However, both of these goals were missed miserably. Completion of the project was delayed several times for various reasons. As of now, the station is expected to open at the end of 2025, more than 6 years later than originally planned. In addition to protests by environmental activists from many Germans, Stuttgart 21 was further delayed by difficulties in tunnel construction. Approximately 60 kilometers of tunnels must be built to connect the new Stuttgart station to the existing rail network. Another surprising, but comparatively not so bad problem occurred in 2017 due to the construction project. Thousands of strictly protected lizards had to be relocated along the route from Ulm to Stuttgart. Project management has estimated that this incident will cost $18 million. In some difficult cases, costs of up to $10,000 per lizard have been charged. And unfortunately, a special type of soil that swells on contact with water makes the work very challenging. This could lead to the problem of having to keep replacing the tunnels. Because of all these difficulties, the cost of Stuttgart 21 will be twice as high as planned. Number 2. 20 Fenchurch Street. The building 20 Rendert Street gets its name from the address where it is located. This building is a commercial skyscraper in London. The building was sold for $1.8 billion to a manufacturing company from Hong Kong. This price is a record price for a single building in the UK. After its completion in 2014, the skyscraper was not only dubbed a walkie-talkie due to its distinctive shape, but was also named the ugliest new building in the UK. However, that wasn't the building's real problem. At 20 Fenchurch, a comparatively not so expensive but unusual mistake was made in the planning process. Similar to many modern skyscrapers, the walkie-talkie has a large glass frontage that reflects sunlight. Unlike normal skyscrapers, however, which usually have straight walls, this created a problem. During the day, the sun shines on the southern side of the building, and unfortunately, that very side has a concave curvature. As a result, the walkie-talkie concentrates the sun's rays on the street, and the house is on the opposite side of the street during the summer. As a result, the sun's rays were reflected 6 times more than normal. This extreme heat even melted parked cars and caused cracks on the sidewalk. In a Sky News report, a reporter across the street fried an egg using only the reflected sunlight. The same architect of this building also designed the Videra Hotel in Las Vegas. That building had a similar problem with sunlight reflection. He said in an interview that horizontally shifted windows on the south side were intended to prevent this problem. However, they were removed at some point during the design process. The new guy also said he didn't know it was going to be that hot, and when he got to London, it wasn't. In the end, a sunshade solved the problem, but it cost $14 million. Number 3. Berlin-Brandenburg Airport. In a list of the 5 most expensive construction errors, simply 2 come from Germany. GG to Germany. This airport is an international airport project in Berlin, Germany. When construction began in 2006, the project was originally scheduled to be released in 2011 at a cost of $2.5 billion. However, years of delays followed, caused by embarrassing failures and corruption. Consequently, construction deadlines could not be met anyway. In 2010, the first delay occurred when the insolvency of a planning company involved was announced. Further delays occurred due to fire safety requirements not being met. But not only that, the airport also failed to pass the acceptance test required for airport operations. In addition, a total of 67 kilometers of cooling lines were laid without thermal insulation. This error was corrected by demolishing dozens of walls and inserting the pipes. The cost to date has more than tripled to a total of $8.3 billion. 14 years after construction began and 9 years after the originally planned opening date, Berlin-Brandenburg Airport went into operation in 2020. But that's not the end of the airport's failure. Despite its opening, it is unlikely to be able to finance itself both during and after the pandemic. Even more funding will be needed to avoid bankruptcy, which could cost another $2 billion. Number 4. Citigroup Center. The Citigroup Center is located in Midtown Manhattan, NY. The 280-meter tall skyscraper has a very special feature. It is supported by only 4 foundation piers of 34 meters each, and in 1978 a major problem was identified. Until then, engineers estimated the stability of the building by calculating the winds that came perpendicular to the building. However, they did not take into account the quarter winds that hit the corners. The problem was discovered when civil engineer William Limsey had a discussion with Princeton civil engineering student Diane Hartley. She claimed that the building was unstable and could topple at any time in high winds, causing a massive disaster. For this reason, engineers conducted stability studies. They quickly determined that college student Diane Hartley was right. Lumies are estimated that, on average, a wind that could cause the building to collapse occurs every 55 years. And if the built-in mass damper didn't work, however, because of a power outage, even a wind that occurs on average every 16 years would be strong enough. A collapse of the building would have fatal consequences. Unlike a demolition, the building would not collapse in on itself, but would topple over. This could trigger a domino effect and damage or even collapse surrounding skyscrapers in New York. A horror scenario that must never happen and had to be prevented at all costs. And it got worse. Hurricane Ella was approaching the city. The engineers had to act quickly because they did not want to cause mass panic. Very few people, including the mayor of New York City, knew about the problem and no public statement was made. Engineers worked day and night for 3 months to solve the problem. Finally, they welded 2-inch steel plates over the bolted connections in the building to increase the stability of the Citigroup Center. Fortunately, Hurricane Ella never reached the region and the repair was completed in October 1978. Many millions of dollars were put into this repair. 17 years later, the whole story was published in an article in The New Yorker after Lou Meisly casually talked about it at a party. Number 5. Jeddah Tower, better known as the Kingdom Tower. Jeddah Tower stands in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. With the size of 2 Empire State Buildings on top of each other, Jeddah Tower was poised to become the first 1 km tall skyscraper. The skyscraper is part of Saudi Arabia's efforts to diversify the country's economy towards tourism, similar to Dubai and the famous Burj Khalifa. Construction of the Jeddah Tower began in 2013 and was expected to be completed by 2018. However, Saudi Arabia's purge in 2017 caused major construction problems, and work on the building was halted after only 1/3 of the tower was completed. Major investors in the project, including Prince Al-Walid bin Talal, were detained by the Saudi Arabian government. 3 months later, when some investors were released, construction was still on hold, and there was no official date for completion. By the time construction was halted, the tower had already reached a height of 252 meters. Since then, no progress has been made on the construction site. If the project is abandoned in the middle of construction, there would be a loss of at least $1 billion. What do you think about these construction failures? Which one do you find the most glaring? Feel free to write it in the comments and watch this video about the most useless megaprojects. If it's not online yet, subscribe.